The day my own family emptied my son's college fund, they thought I was powerless. What they didn't know was that I'd already stopped asking for permission. I didn't find out about the money through a phone call. There was no warning, no explanation, no apology. I found out when my son came home from school, dropped his bag near the door, and sat silently at the kitchen table. He didn't even look at me at first. "Mom," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, "did we lose my college money?" That single question hit harder than any shouting ever could. For a second, I thought he was mistaken. My son was 17, smart, focused, already researching engineering programs, scholarships, campus housing. That fund wasn't just money. It was my promise to him that his future was safe, no matter what happened to me. "What do you mean?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm. He slid his phone across the table. An email notification from the bank. Withdrawal successful. Balance, $0. I felt the blood drain from my face. That account had one rule, 2 signatures required. Mine and my father's. I already knew who had done it. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. My parents had always believed money belonged to the family, not to individuals, not to children's futures. They called it family money, whenever it suited them. When I was 16, it meant my savings could be borrowed to help my uncle. When I got married, it meant my wedding gift money quietly disappeared. Every time I questioned it, I was told I was selfish, emotional, ungrateful. So when my father insisted on co-signing my son's college fund years ago, I should have known better. "It's just a precaution," he'd said with a smile, "in case something happens to you." I trusted him. That was my mistake. I didn't rush to confront them. People assume revenge starts with anger. It doesn't. It starts with silence. That evening, I drove to my parents' house like nothing was wrong. I brought dessert. I laughed when my mother joked. I listened as my father complained about rising costs and sacrifices they had made for everyone else. Only after dinner did I ask casually, "Did you touch the college account?" No one looked surprised. My mother sighed. My father leaned back in his chair. "We needed it," he said calmly. "For what?" I asked. "To handle some things," my mother replied. "You'll understand one day." I was 39 years old. "That money was for my son," I said quietly. My father's voice hardened. "He's young. He has time. We raised you with nothing, and you turned out fine." Fine. I thought about my son studying late at night, believing his future was secure. And I smiled. "Oh," I said softly, "okay." That smile changed everything, because once I stopped arguing, they relaxed. They started talking. They told me about hidden debts, about my uncle's failing business, about how they assumed I would never take legal action. "You wouldn't embarrass your own parents," my mother said gently. I nodded. I agreed. I thanked them for being honest. Then I left. That night, my son stood in his doorway watching me pace the living room. "Are we in trouble?" he asked. I stopped and looked at him. "No," I said, "but I need you to trust me." He hesitated, then nodded. That nod gave me permission. What my parents didn't know, what they never asked, was what I did for a living now. I wasn't the scared daughter they remembered. I worked in financial compliance. Tracing unauthorized transactions was literally my job. The moment that money moved, it left a trail, a clear one. By morning, I had documents. By afternoon, screenshots. By evening, proof that the withdrawal violated multiple regulations. Still, I said nothing, because revenge doesn't announce itself. It waits. 2 weeks later, my parents hosted a family dinner. Everyone was invited. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even my son. My mother hugged me tightly at the door. "I'm glad you're not upset anymore," she whispered. I smiled again. At dinner, my father raised his glass. "To family," he said, "and the sacrifices we make for each other." Everyone applauded. I looked around the table at the people who thought I was weak, and I realized something important. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. They thought the problem was over. That was their first mistake. After the family dinner, my parents started acting. Comfortable, too comfortable. My father called me the next morning, his voice light, almost cheerful. "We were thinking," he said, "maybe your son can take a gap year. It builds character." I said nothing. My mother sent messages about budgeting tips, about how education isn't everything, about how kids today expect too much. I replied with short answers, polite ones. They mistook silence for surrender. Meanwhile, my son watched everything. One night, he asked quietly, "Why are they acting like nothing happened?" "Because they think they won," I said. That answer scared him. It should have. I started gathering quietly, not just bank records, patterns. I reviewed old accounts, joint signatures, past family emergencies. That's when I saw it. This wasn't the first time. Over the years, my parents had accessed money from accounts they weren't supposed to touch, always small enough to avoid attention, always justified as temporary. They hadn't just crossed a line, they'd built a habit, and habits leave trails. I scheduled a consultation under a neutral name. No drama, no threats, just questions. The specialist didn't even look surprised. This is clear misuse of authority, she said. And because a minor's future fund is involved, the consequences escalate. I thanked her and left. Still said nothing. A week later, my uncle showed up at my door. He didn't knock confidently. He knocked like someone who already knew the answer. I heard you're upset, he said. I'm fine, I replied. He exhaled. That money saved my business. I looked at him calmly. At my son's expense. You'll get it back eventually, he said. Family doesn't keep score. I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded. He left relieved. Another mistake. The pressure started when my parents realized I wasn't asking for the money back. No emotional calls, no crying, no threats, just quiet. That's when they got nervous. My mother called late one night. You're being distant, she said. People are talking. I knew what that meant. They were scared of reputation, not justice. Everything's fine, I replied. She didn't believe me. Then came the manipulation. They offered favors, promises, even apologies, but never real ones. My father said, if you'd just been more responsible, we wouldn't have needed to step in. That sentence locked everything into place, because now I knew one thing for sure. They felt entitled. Behind the scenes, I was preparing something else, something they couldn't argue with. Paper doesn't care about family. Rules don't feel guilt. And once they're triggered, they don't stop. My son found me reviewing documents one night. Are you taking them to court? He asked. Not yet, I said. When? When they make one more mistake. As if on cue, my father sent an email, not to me, to the bank, requesting another transfer. Smaller this time, quieter, routine. That email was the final piece. I saved it, forwarded it, logged everything. And for the first time I smiled, not out of politeness, but because the plan was complete. 2 days later, my parents announced another family gathering, a celebration. They said it was to clear the air. I knew better. Public confidence always comes before public collapse. At the dinner, my mother took my hand. You see? She whispered. Everything worked out. I looked around the room, at smiling faces, at raised glasses, at people who thought the story was finished. And I realized something. They hadn't just underestimated me. They'd invited witnesses. That night, as we were leaving, my father said casually, next time, just trust us. I met his eyes. For the first time, I didn't smile. The invitation said family dinner. The tone said victory lap. My parents hosted it at their house, the same one where every rule had always applied to everyone except them. Fresh flowers, expensive wine, smiles practiced in mirrors. They wanted witnesses. They just didn't know what kind. I arrived calm, too calm. My son noticed. You okay? He whispered. I've never been better, I said. That worried him more than anger ever could. Dinner started politely, small talk, compliments, laughing too loudly. My uncle was there, the same one whose emergency had eaten my child's future. He avoided my eyes, focused on his plate, pretending gratitude could erase theft. My mother clinked her glass. Family, she said warmly. We've had misunderstandings lately, but tonight is about moving forward. Applause followed. That's when I stood up. I agree, I said. We should move forward. The room stilled, not because of my words, but because of my tone. I reached into my bag. My father frowned. My mother's smile twitched. I placed a folder on the table. This, I said, is a record of every unauthorized transfer from my child's account over the last 12 years. Silence. Someone laughed nervously. That's not appropriate dinner conversation, my mother snapped. It is, I replied, when everyone here unknowingly benefited. My uncle froze. What are you talking about? He asked. I turned to him. Your business loan, the renovation, the bailout no bank would touch. His face drained of color. My parents started talking at once. You're exaggerating. This is private. You don't understand how families work. I waited. Then I slid copies across the table. Dates, amounts, signatures. Receipts don't argue. My father stood abruptly. This ends now. No, I said. This starts now. I tapped the folder. These documents have already been reviewed. My mother laughed, sharp, brittle. By who? She scoffed. You? I met her eyes. No, by people who don't care that you're my parents. The room changed. Not instantly, but like pressure shifting before a storm. My cousin stood up. Someone whispered. A chair scraped the floor. My father's voice dropped. You wouldn't. I already did. That's when the doorbell rang. No one moved. Again, ding dong. My son looked at me, eyes wide. I nodded. I'll get it, I said. 2 people stood outside. Professional, neutral, calm. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't need to. They asked for my parents by name. My mother's knees buckled. What is this? She demanded. A formal inquiry, one of them said, regarding fiduciary misuse tied to a minor's protected assets. The word minor echoed. Suddenly, this wasn't family drama. It was law. The dinner guests backed away as if the table itself were contagious. My father tried to speak, failed. My mother grabbed my arm. You're destroying this family, she hissed. I leaned in close. No, I'm correcting it. The questions were precise. When did you authorize this? Why was consent missing? Where did the funds go? Every answer created another silence. Every silence grew heavier. Then came the moment I'll never forget. One of them turned to me. And you are the legal guardian? Yes. Then you did the right thing. My parents heard that, and something broke. My mother started crying, not softly, not apologetically, but angrily. After everything we did for you. My father shouted, We raised you. I nodded, and that's why I learned accountability. They were escorted into the next room, not arrested, not yet, but no longer in control. The guests left one by one, eyes averted, whispers trailing behind them like smoke. My uncle tried to approach me. I didn't know, he said desperately. You should have asked, I replied. He didn't argue. Later that night, my phone buzzed. Message after message. Family, friends, accusations. How could you? They're your parents. This could ruin them. I turned the phone face down. My son sat beside me. They're scared, he said. Yes, I replied, for the first time. The next weeks were quiet, but not peaceful. Accounts were frozen. Reviews opened. Stories changed. My parents called. I didn't answer. They emailed. I archived. Silence. The same silence they'd mistaken for weakness before. One afternoon, I received a single message from my father. We can fix this. Just say the word. I typed back 3 words. You already did. The official notice arrived soon after. Funds were to be restored. Penalties assessed. Responsibilities reassigned. But that wasn't the real punishment. The real punishment was reputation. People talk. They always do. My mother ran into me weeks later at a store. She looked smaller, older, afraid. You've made your point, she said quietly. I shook my head. No, I said. I protected my child. She had nothing to say to that. That night my son asked, Is it over? I thought about it, about consequences, about justice. Almost, I said. Because one final thing remained, something they hadn't anticipated, something that doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, and doesn't care who you are. The letter arrived on an ordinary Tuesday. No warning, no phone call, no apology attached. Just an envelope with official markings and a weight that felt heavier than paper. I opened it alone at the kitchen table. The funds were restored, every cent, not as a favor, not as forgiveness, as a court-mandated correction. The account now sat under independent oversight until my son turned 18. No family access, no loopholes, no emergencies. The system my parents once controlled had quietly locked them out, forever. My son came home from school smiling that day. He dropped his bag and said casually, Mom, my counselor says I can apply for that summer program now. I nodded. Go ahead, I said. You always could. He paused. You knew this would work, didn't you? I thought about that. No, I said honestly. I just knew I wouldn't stop. The final hearing was brief. No speeches, no emotional appeals, just facts. My parents sat on one side of the room, stiff, smaller than I remembered. The confidence that once filled every space they entered was gone. They didn't look at me. They couldn't. The judge spoke calmly. Misuse of protected assets, breach of fiduciary duty, violation of trust. Words that don't shout, but cut. The penalties were finalized. Financial restitution, legal records updated. permanent removal from any guardianship or financial authority involving minors. My mother cried. My father stared straight ahead. Neither asked for forgiveness. They knew it wouldn't matter. Outside the courthouse, my father finally spoke. You could have handled this privately. I met his eyes. You had 12 years. He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to say. Weeks passed. Life didn't explode. It settled. That's what real justice does. Family gatherings stopped including them, not because I demanded it, but because people felt different now. Trust, once cracked, doesn't echo the same. My uncle moved away. Friends stopped calling my parents generous and started calling them careless. Reputation doesn't need punishment. It collapses under truth. One evening, my mother showed up unannounced. I didn't invite her in. She stood on the porch, hands shaking. I was scared, she said. That's why I did it. I nodded. Fear explains actions, I said. It doesn't erase them. She looked at my son through the window. You turned him against us. I shook my head. No, I said softly. You taught him who you were. She left without another word. Months later, my son received his acceptance letter. Full program, scholarship consideration, future unlocked. He hugged me harder than ever before. You didn't yell, he said. You didn't fight. You just waited. I smiled. Silence, I told him, is powerful when it's backed by truth. On his 18th birthday, we visited the bank together. The account transferred fully to his name. No intermediaries, no guardians, no shadows. He signed his name carefully, then looked up at me. They can't touch this anymore, he said. No, I replied, and neither can regret. That night, I deleted the last unread message from my parents. No response. No closure text. Closure isn't something you give to people who stole peace. It's something you take back. I didn't destroy my parents. I didn't ruin a family. I did something far worse to people who relied on silence. I ended their control. And the funny thing, I never raised my voice, never threatened, never begged. I said nothing, and that was enough.